She disappeared on her 18th birthday. 20 years later, a metal detectorist finds this. The cool evening breeze gently rustled through the tall palms, carrying the salty fragrance of the ocean that whispered softly from nearby Tybee Island beach. Emma Torres stood beneath strings of glowing fairy lights, their warm golden reflections shimmering across her delicate red dress, accentuating the youthful radiance of her smile. Tonight was her 18th birthday, and the joy on her face was unmistakable. Emma's laughter intertwined effortlessly with the cheerful chatter of friends and family gathered in the expansive backyard of the Torres beach house. Music pulsed gently from outdoor speakers, creating a lively yet intimate atmosphere. Guests mingled comfortably, drinks clinking softly, and plates filled with delicately arranged appetizers were passed around freely. The scent of freshly cut flowers mixed delightfully with the faint aroma of salt water, making the evening feel almost dreamlike. Emma was chatting animatedly with her best friend, Haley, when her mother Clara approached, wearing her signature brooch, a sentimental gift Emma had made for her as a child. Clara gently touched Emma's shoulder, eyes glistening softly with tears of pride. "Oh, sweetheart, look at you," Clara whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "You look absolutely beautiful." Emma grinned playfully. "Mom, please don't cry, at least, not yet." Clara laughed softly, squeezing her daughter's arm affectionately. "I can't help it, Em. I just can't believe how quickly you grew up." Emma's laughter was interrupted by a familiar voice. "If you two get any more sentimental, we'll need tissues before we even cut the cake." She turned, smiling brightly. Her uncle Matthew stood there, impeccably dressed, adjusting his glasses with meticulous care, a habitual gesture. Emma rolled her eyes playfully. "Very funny, Uncle Matt." Matthew chuckled warmly, stepping forward to hug her gently. "Happy birthday, Em. You deserve every happiness in the world." "Thank you, Uncle Matt," she replied warmly, feeling genuinely grateful for his ever-present support. Haley nudged Emma's elbow teasingly. "Come on, birthday girl. They're waiting for you at the cake table." Emma glanced towards the decorated gazebo, where the elegant two-tiered cake awaited beneath a soft spotlight. Her heart fluttered with excitement as she moved forward, guests gathering closely around her, voices falling into a gentle, anticipatory hush. "All right, everyone," Matthew called loudly, taking charge naturally, his confident voice filling the air. "Let's give a big cheer for Emma's 18th birthday." The crowd erupted joyously, clapping and whistling as Emma stood before the cake, smiling shyly. Her father handed her the cake knife, his expression full of pride. "Make a wish, Em." Emma closed her eyes briefly, smiling softly before slicing into the cake amid another enthusiastic cheer. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed, and the night seemed perfect in every way. Then, suddenly, the fairy lights flickered, causing startled murmurs among the guests. In a single abrupt moment, darkness enveloped the entire backyard. Voices grew tense, confused whispers quickly replacing earlier laughter. "What happened to the lights?" Clara's worried voice rose softly through the murmuring. "It's just a short circuit," Matthew reassured, his tone calm, authoritative. "I'll check the breaker. Stay calm, everyone." In less than a minute, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating relieved yet slightly unsettled faces. Clara looked around quickly. "Emma? Emma, where are you?" The guests' eyes searched the crowd. Emma was nowhere to be seen. "Haley, did you see where Emma went?" Clara asked nervously. Haley shook her head, her face pale. "She was right here next to me. When the lights went out, I lost sight of her." Matthew returned swiftly, adjusting his glasses once more, looking increasingly concerned. "She's probably just stepped away." "Let's not panic yet," but Clara's voice betrayed her worry. Emma wouldn't just wander off like this. Not tonight. Matthew took her arm reassuringly, though his own hand trembled slightly. We'll find her. She can't have gone far. Guests began to spread out, calling Emma's name anxiously. Soon, the celebration became a frantic search party, flashlights slicing through the dark bushes and corners of the yard. The joyful atmosphere had shattered completely, replaced by rising tension and quiet dread. Emma. Clara's voice cracked, her anxiety escalating as minutes passed without any sign of her daughter. Matthew, composed yet increasingly strained, organized groups to search along the short path leading toward the beach. His voice, typically firm and calming, was now edged with subtle urgency. Everyone stay close. Check carefully. Emma. Time crawled tortuously slow, each passing moment deepening the anxiety felt by everyone. Even the ocean seemed to echo. The dread, the gentle waves now sounding harsh and unfeeling. Near the property's edge, Detective Liam Parker, who had arrived swiftly after a call from one of the panicked guests, surveyed the chaotic scene, his thoughtful eyes examining each face carefully. Despite his youth, his presence conveyed steadiness, control. Detective, Matthew approached, his face pale. I've checked everywhere. We can't find Emma. Who was with her when the lights went out? Liam asked calmly, notebook already in hand. Haley, her friend, and Clara, her mother, Matthew explained quickly. But everyone lost sight of her when it went dark. Liam nodded slowly, his gaze drifting thoughtfully toward the dark path leading down to the sandy dunes near the shore. Let's check the beach thoroughly. Matthew led Liam toward the path, flashlight beams dancing ahead, slicing sharply through dense vegetation and shadowy outlines of bushes. Every rustle of leaves or shifting shadows heightened their anxiety. As they emerged near the dunes, Liam suddenly stopped, holding up his hand to silence the small search party behind him. His sharp eyes caught a tiny glint of metal reflecting faintly in the sand beside the narrow path. What's that? Matthew whispered nervously, adjusting his glasses yet again. Liam knelt slowly, reaching out with a gloved hand. Carefully, he lifted a delicate silver necklace from the sand. Emma's necklace, unmistakably, shimmering slightly under the pale moonlight. But something else caught the detective's attention, something deeply troubling. There, on the delicate chain, glistened tiny droplets of blood. Matthew inhaled sharply, his eyes wide with horror. Is that? Yes, Liam answered quietly, his calm voice heavy with grim certainty. It's blood. Matthew stared, speechless, at the necklace, his mind clearly racing behind tense eyes. The realization of potential violence tightened his throat. Emma, he murmured shakily, visibly unsettled for the first time. The detective stood slowly, holding the necklace carefully. We need to secure this area immediately. This just became something much more serious than a missing person search. Matthew swallowed hard, eyes briefly flickering away. She has to be okay, he whispered, voice barely audible. She just has to. Liam's expression remained neutral, his gaze carefully assessing Matthew. We'll do everything possible, Mr. Torres, but I have to ask, did Emma have any conflicts or problems recently? Anything unusual? No, Matthew responded quickly, shaking his head vehemently. Emma was perfect. Everyone adored her. Detective Parker nodded slowly, his eyes carefully studying the troubled man before him. We'll talk more, Mr. Torres. For now, let's focus on finding Emma. Matthew nodded weakly, stepping back, a subtle darkness clouding his gaze for just an instant before disappearing beneath a mask of controlled distress. Nearby, Clara's cries echoed softly through the night, the sound cutting deeply into the heart of everyone present. The gentle beauty of the earlier celebration had vanished entirely, replaced by a haunting uncertainty and profound, creeping dread. Standing silently, Detective Liam Parker observed the necklace in his gloved hand, knowing instinctively that something sinister had disrupted this perfect night. Something hidden, something dark, something that would haunt them all. And beneath the peaceful whisper of waves breaking softly on Tybee Island's shore, the truth waited silently, hidden in shadow, ready to rise to the surface. But for now, all they had was a silver necklace stained with blood and a chilling, unanswerable question: where was Emma Torres? Detective Liam Parker stood silently at the edge of the beach house property, his eyes scanning the scene with meticulous care. The early morning sun painted a bleak golden glow across Tybee Island, but its warmth felt hollow against the grim task before him. Liam was young, just 27, with neatly combed dark hair and perceptive blue eyes that seemed older than his years. He carefully adjusted his navy blue tie, trying to maintain an air of control despite the turmoil inside him. He felt an unsettling weight, a deep responsibility, not just professionally but emotionally. Emma Torres had just turned 18. Liam himself had a younger sister around Emma's age. He couldn't help but see her face reflected in Emma's photos. This case had become personal. Taking a slow, deep breath, Liam approached Clara Torres, sitting quietly under the shaded patio. She looked fragile, pale, almost ghost-like. Her gaze was distant, fixed blankly on the horizon. Liam paused, then gently sat beside her. Mrs. Torres, I know this is incredibly difficult, but I need to ask you some questions about last night. She nodded weakly, barely registering his presence. Do you remember anything unusual before the lights went out? Anyone behaving strangely? Clara's voice trembled softly. No. Everything was so perfect. Emma was laughing. So happy. It doesn't make sense. Why her? Her voice cracked, eyes filling rapidly with tears. Liam instinctively handed her a tissue, his heart aching for her. I promise we're doing everything we can. Every detail helps us, Clara. I was standing right next to her when the lights flickered, she continued, her voice breaking further. Just a second. Just 1 second of darkness, and she was gone. How is that even possible? Liam looked up as Matthew Torres approached cautiously, adjusting his glasses nervously. Detective, have you found anything? Not yet, Matthew, but maybe you can help me. Did Emma mention any recent conflicts, arguments, relationships? Matthew shook his head emphatically. No, Detective. Emma got along with everyone. She didn't have enemies. She had dreams, ambitions. New York fashion school. She would never just leave us. Liam studied Matthew's composed exterior carefully. Something about the precision of his gestures and carefully measured words seemed slightly off, rehearsed almost. But Liam knew better than to jump to conclusions without solid evidence. I understand. We'll need to speak further later. Matthew nodded stiffly, his gaze lingering briefly on Clara with apparent sympathy before stepping away. As morning turned into afternoon, Liam methodically interviewed everyone who attended the party. Haley, Emma's best friend, sat nervously, fidgeting with a bracelet. I swear, Detective, we were talking 1 second, laughing. Then everything went dark. It felt like just a blink, and she disappeared. Emma wouldn't run away. I know her. Haley's voice wavered, anxiety etched into her expression. Liam gently reassured her, noting the genuine anguish in her eyes. He interviewed cousins, neighbors, school friends. Each recounted the same bewildering scenario. Emma was there, smiling, and then she was not. By late afternoon, Frustration etched lines into Liam's brow. The physical search had turned up nothing. Teams had combed the entire property, the dunes, and surrounding woodland meticulously. They found no signs of struggle, no footprints beyond the main paths, no torn fabric. Only Emma's blood-stained necklace stood as haunting evidence of something sinister. "We'll expand the search perimeter," Liam instructed his team wearily, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Keep looking." As evening descended again, Oliver Graham, a young local teacher, newly married, approached Liam hesitantly, his hand gently touching his wife's shoulder. "Detective Parker, I'm Oliver Graham. I live just down the road. My wife and I heard about Emma and want to help. We know the island well." Liam nodded gratefully, briefly shaking Oliver's hand. "Thank you, Oliver. We'll appreciate any help. Right now, we're focusing along the beach. Maybe you can join one of the search teams?" "Of course. Whatever we can do," Oliver said softly, his eyes reflecting genuine concern. Yet even with Oliver's local knowledge, searches through the night yielded nothing. Exhaustion and despair visibly settled over volunteers and police alike. Days passed agonizingly slowly. Media attention escalated dramatically, placing heavy pressure on Liam and his small precinct. He meticulously reviewed party photos, checked security cameras around Tybee Island, and re-examined witness statements. Still, nothing concrete emerged. Weeks blurred into frustrating months, and Liam could sense the growing tension within Emma's family. Clara's grief seemed to hollow her out entirely. Matthew maintained a stoic, supportive facade, yet his persistent composure felt increasingly suspicious to Liam. One afternoon, months later, Liam sat alone in his cramped office, walls lined with evidence photos, reports scattered across the desk. The whiteboard displayed a timeline and vague leads. Frustration boiled within him, compounded by his guilt and personal attachment. His senior officer, Captain Reynolds, knocked softly and entered, his expression grim. "Parker, it's been months. We've run down every lead twice. The chief thinks it's time to move on. We just don't have enough to go on here." Liam felt his chest tighten, desperation evident in his eyes. "Sir, if we could just dig deeper, revisit the witnesses again, maybe something new," Reynolds interrupted gently. "Liam, we've done everything humanly possible. No witnesses saw a thing, no forensic evidence besides the necklace. There's nothing more to chase. Officially, the investigation needs to close." "I'm sorry." Liam stared numbly, processing the gravity of those words. "We can't give up on her. Captain, Emma deserves justice. Her mother deserves answers." Reynolds sighed heavily, his voice compassionate. "You're a good detective, Liam, but not every case gets resolved. I wish I could tell you otherwise." Liam stayed silent, fists clenched, swallowing back a mix of anger and disappointment. After a lingering moment, Reynolds left quietly, leaving Liam alone to grapple with the painful truth. He had failed Emma, failed her family, failed himself. His first major case would forever be unresolved, a stain on his career. That evening, Liam made one last visit to Clara Torres. She opened the door slowly, the vibrant woman he'd first met now a shadow, haunted by loss. "I'm so sorry, Clara," he began softly, his voice tight with regret. "We have to close the investigation. But I promise you, personally, I will never stop hoping to find Emma." Clara nodded slowly, eyes empty, devoid of hope. "Thank you for trying, Detective. But my Emma's gone. I feel it here." She touched her heart softly, tears silently tracing her pale cheeks. Liam felt the pain of her grief deeply. If anything new ever surfaces, even the smallest detail, "I'll be here," he promised sincerely. I won't forget her. Clara offered a faint, grateful smile as she gently closed the door. Liam stood there for a moment, heart heavy. Turning slowly, he stepped away, feeling as though a piece of him would forever remain trapped here, suspended in unresolved tragedy. The following morning, as the sun rose indifferently over Tybee Island, the official investigation was marked as inactive. Files were boxed, evidence carefully stored away. Liam Parker watched silently as colleagues moved mechanically, dismantling the investigative boards and packing away months of desperate work. His superior, Captain Reynolds, placed a hand on his shoulder, speaking quietly, resigned. "This one hurts, Liam, for all of us. But sometimes there's just nothing more we can do." Liam met his gaze, determination still flickering beneath the exhaustion. "There has to be. Somewhere, somehow, there's an answer." Reynolds nodded sadly, stepping away as Liam stared blankly at the now empty investigation room. The echo of unanswered questions lingered painfully. Outside, life on Tybee Island moved forward, blissfully unaware of the silent wound left by Emma's disappearance. For everyone else, it became just another cold case. For Liam Parker, it was personal, a shadow he'd carry indefinitely. Unanswered questions weighing heavier with each passing day, and somewhere beneath the quiet sands, the truth still waited, patiently in darkness, hidden from sight, untouched by time. The early morning sun rose gently above Tybee Island, spilling a golden hue over calm ocean waves that caressed the shoreline. It was March 14th, 2023, exactly 20 years since Emma Torres had vanished from her own birthday party. The island had slowly returned to normalcy over the years, but beneath its peaceful surface, an enduring sadness lingered. Clara Torres sat quietly on her small wooden porch, wrapped tightly in a faded shawl, her once vibrant eyes now shadowed with perpetual grief. Her life had shrunk into a quiet routine punctuated by memories of Emma, her laugh, her smile, her dreams. Clara had never recovered from that night. She still lived in the same modest beach house, hoping desperately, irrationally, that someday Emma might return, as if lost years could somehow be erased. She sipped her tea silently, gazing out toward the empty horizon, her fingers brushing gently against the worn silver brooch Emma had made for her as a child. Clara clung to it every day, the small piece of metal her anchor to sanity. She often wondered how her life might have turned out if things had been different. If Emma had simply stayed near the lights that night, if only she hadn't disappeared into that brief, terrifying darkness. A short distance away, Matthew Torres lived a starkly contrasting life. He occupied an elegant beachfront house decorated tastefully with comfortable furniture and expensive art, his life seemingly untouched by the trauma that had shattered Clara. At 58, Matthew maintained his appearance meticulously, his neatly groomed hair silvering gracefully, glasses polished obsessively, clothes pressed with calculated precision. Neighbors respected Matthew for his calm demeanor and kindness, often mentioning how supportive he'd always been to Clara after Emma's disappearance. Despite occasional sideways glances, no one openly questioned his behavior or his seemingly unblemished record. Matthew himself had always deflected suspicions with polite, reassuring smiles, his confident bearing quietly dismissing any lingering whispers. He sat now at a cafe near the beach, sipping his morning coffee, newspaper folded neatly beside him. His mind drifted briefly to Emma, then quickly retreated. Memories had grown distant, buried deeply behind carefully constructed barriers. It was safer that way. Elsewhere on the island, Oliver Graham awoke alone in his small, cluttered bungalow near the shoreline. He stretched stiffly, the bed cold beside him. His wife had passed away 6 years ago, and since then, Oliver's solitary existence had revolved around a quiet routine, punctuated by walks on the beach and occasional teaching at a local community. College. Oliver had become known among locals as an amateur detectorist, a solitary figure who spent early mornings scanning the sands with a battered metal detector, his quiet attempt to find meaning amidst loss. He found comfort in uncovering forgotten objects, giving silent stories to rusted coins, forgotten jewelry, and remnants of past lives. Every discovery felt like reconnecting with something intangible, a brief moment of purpose. On this particular morning, Oliver took his usual slow, deliberate stroll along the deserted beach, the salty breeze soothing his senses. His detector emitted soft, rhythmic beeps, methodically scanning the sand as he walked. He paused briefly to adjust his glasses, blinking into the sunlight that filtered gently through misty clouds. Halfway along his usual route, near a familiar cluster of dunes, his detector suddenly emitted a sharp, persistent tone, louder than usual. Oliver frowned slightly, intrigued. He knelt carefully, feeling his knees press into the damp sand, and began to dig gently with his small shovel. Curiosity piqued. After several minutes, Oliver felt the distinct scrape of metal against metal. Carefully, he cleared the sand, uncovering the edge of a rusty metallic box, partially corroded by years beneath salt water and sand. His heart quickened. A box like this was unusual. He worked patiently, hands shaking slightly as he carefully extracted the container. He examined it closely, noting its unexpected weight. Slowly, he released its rusty clasps, carefully prying the lid open. Oliver drew a sharp breath, momentarily paralyzed by disbelief. Inside the box, neatly folded and astonishingly well preserved, lay a vibrant red dress, unmistakably familiar even after 2 decades. Oliver recognized it immediately. Everyone who had lived on Tybee Island during those painful weeks 20 years earlier would recognize Emma Torres' birthday dress. Oliver's breath quickened, his heart hammering. He set the box down cautiously and reached for his phone, fingers trembling slightly. He dialed the police with shaking hands, his voice urgent yet carefully controlled. "This is Oliver Graham. I'm at the beach near the dunes by the lighthouse. I found something you need to see immediately. It's about Emma Torres." Within the hour, Tybee Island police arrived swiftly, cordoning off the area, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief and grim determination. News quickly spread across the small island community, reopening a painful wound that had never truly healed. In his office downtown, Detective Liam Parker, now 47, graying slightly at the temples and wearing the haunted expression of a man still burdened by his first great failure, received the news. His pulse quickened, adrenaline surging. The Torres case had always haunted him, an unresolved stain on his career and conscience. Liam had never given up hope that someday a clue, any clue, might surface. He drove swiftly to the scene, heart pounding in his chest as he approached the familiar shoreline where he'd spent countless hours searching for answers 20 years earlier. Memories flooded back sharply, each unresolved question tugging painfully. Liam approached Oliver, shaking his hand firmly. "Thank you, Oliver. Tell me exactly how you found this." Oliver recounted the morning's events precisely, his voice quiet, yet steady, eyes reflecting empathy for Liam's evident turmoil. "I didn't expect to find something like this, Detective, but I hope it brings answers." Liam carefully knelt beside the open metal box, examining the red dress with a mixture of reverence and trepidation. He vividly remembered Emma wearing it, smiling radiantly that night, her future so promising, so tragically uncertain afterward. "Officer, let's take this back to forensics immediately," Liam instructed firmly, his voice steady but urgent. I need a thorough examination right away. As the box was transported carefully back to the precinct, Liam drove silently, his mind racing with possibilities. He called Clara personally, his voice gentle yet cautiously hopeful. "Mrs. Torres, we've found something. Something belonging to Emma. I need you to come to the station." Clara arrived quickly, her frail frame trembling visibly as she was escorted into Liam's office. She stared silently at the open box on his desk, reaching out to touch the familiar fabric of her daughter's dress, tears falling freely yet quietly down her pale cheeks. "Emma," she whispered brokenly. "Where was this all these years?" Liam explained gently, reassuring her of their renewed efforts. Clara nodded slowly, allowing herself a small glimmer of hope. Within hours, forensic teams meticulously analyzed every fiber of the dress, noting remarkable preservation due to the tightly sealed container. As Liam observed, holding his breath anxiously, a technician suddenly called him over, excitement evident in her voice. "Detective Parker, look at this." She held up a small, delicate silver pendant shaped as a letter M. Hidden carefully within a stitched lining of the dress, an intricate pocket apparently sewn hastily but deliberately to conceal the pendant. Liam's pulse quickened dramatically. Wait. That pendant. He recognized its significance immediately. A letter possibly linked to someone Emma knew intimately. His mind flashed instantly to Matthew Torres. Liam had always harbored subtle doubts about Matthew's overly polished demeanor and perfectly calculated responses. Yet suspicion alone had never justified action. Now, faced with physical evidence, Liam felt renewed urgency. "Secure this carefully," he instructed firmly, his voice tight. "This pendant might finally lead us to answers we've needed for 2 decades." As Liam left the lab, clutching the preliminary report tightly, his determination surged. Emma Torres' case had reopened officially, this time carrying the potential to finally unravel hidden truths. Outside, Tybee Island's peaceful exterior cracked visibly under renewed attention. Whispers resurfaced rapidly, rumors swirling once more. Matthew Torres sipped his evening tea, carefully watching news updates broadcast relentlessly, detailing Oliver Graham's startling discovery. His grip on the teacup tightened imperceptibly, knuckles whitening slightly. He adjusted his glasses nervously, heart quickening beneath his carefully composed exterior. Secrets, buried deeply beneath carefully constructed layers of time and denial, began stirring once more. The past had waited patiently beneath the sands for 20 years. But now, stirred by Oliver Graham's chance discovery, it was rising swiftly, unforgiving, relentless. For Clara, it meant hope. For Liam, redemption. For Matthew, something darker - fear. And beneath it all, Emma's quiet voice seemed finally ready to speak from beyond silence, ready to reveal the truth hidden beneath the innocent surface of a family forever changed by tragedy. In the forensic lab, beneath bright lights, the pendant bearing the letter M gleamed softly, silently signaling that the search for Emma Torres had finally begun again. Detective Liam Parker sat alone at his desk, bathed in the dim glow of the solitary desk lamp. His office walls were lined with old photos, files, and faded news clippings that recounted the events from 2 decades ago. Once vibrant images of Emma Torres, smiling brightly on her 18th birthday, now stared back at him, frozen in a time before tragedy struck. Liam rubbed his tired eyes and let out a deep sigh. This case had haunted him for years, shadowing his career and stealing his peace. Now, with fresh evidence, hope had sparked once again. He carefully studied the delicate silver pendant bearing the initial NUM through the clear plastic evidence bag. The simple object felt heavy in his hands, its implications potentially profound. Liam's instincts had always whispered quietly about Matthew Torres. but he had never found sufficient reason to openly suspect him. Yet the resurfacing of this pendant forced him to reconsider everything. Reaching into the boxes stacked around him, Liam retrieved the old case files meticulously preserved since the original investigation. Yellowed paper rustled quietly under his fingertips as he flipped through faded reports, witness statements, and photographs. His mind wandered back through 20 years of unresolved doubts and questions. He studied photos closely, looking at the subtle details, facial expressions, body language, fleeting moments captured candidly. Matthew Torres always stood composed, positioned near Emma or Clara, often with a reassuring hand resting gently on Clara's shoulder. Yet there was a subtle stiffness in his stance, an underlying tension Liam hadn't truly recognized before. Was he seeing something real now, or was suspicion clouding his perception? Liam's thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock at his office door. Oliver Graham entered quietly, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "I thought you might need this, Detective," Oliver offered gently, handing Liam the cup. "You've barely rested since we reopened the case." Liam nodded gratefully, sipping the tender king the bitter brew as Oliver sat across from him. "Oliver, thank you again for everything. Your discovery brought new life to this case." "It means more than you know." Oliver adjusted his glasses, his gaze serious yet compassionate. "I remember that night clearly, Detective. Emma's disappearance shook this entire island. I've always felt terrible that we never found her. Maybe this is our second chance to finally bring her peace." Liam met Oliver's steady gaze, sensing sincerity and determination in the quiet teacher. Oliver had quickly become indispensable, not just for his local knowledge, but his genuine empathy. Liam felt profoundly grateful for his support. "We need fresh eyes on everything, Oliver. After 20 years, memories fade, but sometimes details emerge under new scrutiny. Let's go back and talk to everyone again, starting with Clara and Matthew. We might uncover something we missed before." Oliver nodded solemnly. "I'll help however I can, Detective." The following day, Liam arranged detailed interviews at the precinct, gently but persistently probing memories and feelings hidden beneath layers of grief. Clara sat nervously in the interview room, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. "Mrs. Torres," Liam began softly, "I know this isn't easy, but we need to understand more about your family dynamics around the time of Emma's disappearance." Clara hesitated, her eyes haunted. "We were a normal family, Detective Parker. Matthew was always supportive, maybe overly protective at times, especially with Emma. He adored her, spoiled her, but..." Her voice trailed off uncertainly, prompting Liam to lean forward gently. "But what, Clara?" "Sometimes Matthew's affection felt too intense. Emma would laugh it off, but I sensed a discomfort beneath her smiles. I told myself I was imagining things, being paranoid." Clara's voice wavered, tears forming quietly. Liam nodded encouragingly, gently pressing further. "Did Emma ever express discomfort or concern directly?" Clara shook her head slowly. "No, she loved her uncle. He was generous, kind, but sometimes his closeness felt off somehow." Liam noted her words carefully, aware they echoed his own subtle suspicions. Matthew's protective demeanor had always seemed natural, yet perhaps it concealed deeper feelings or motivations. After concluding his interview with Clara, Liam next questioned Matthew, whose composure remained unerringly calm. Matthew adjusted his glasses carefully, meeting Liam's gaze steadily. "Detective Parker, I loved Emma like a daughter. Her disappearance devastated me just as deeply as Clara. Matthew, you never mentioned any tension or concerns in previous interviews. Why is that?" Matthew's expression stiffened slightly before he regained control. I never considered it relevant. Emma and I were close. Of course, family relationships have complexities, but nothing sinister. Liam observed carefully, sensing discomfort behind Matthew's practiced responses. What sort of complexities? Matthew hesitated momentarily. She was growing up quickly. Her attention shifted toward friends, boys, her future. It was normal teenage behavior. Perhaps I struggled slightly with letting go. But I'd never harm her, Detective. Never. Liam nodded silently, his intuition sharpening despite Matthew's controlled demeanor. The interview concluded, leaving him with subtle but growing doubts. Over the next days, Liam and Oliver conducted meticulous interviews with other relatives, neighbors, and friends. Conversations revealed minor resentments and hidden jealousies among family members, fragments of emotional undercurrents unnoticed 20 years ago. The more they delved, the clearer it became that beneath the idyllic facade, subtle tensions had long simmered quietly. One afternoon, as they sifted through old photographs, Oliver paused, examining an image of the Torres family gathered at a previous event, long before Emma's 18th birthday. Oliver's brow furrowed thoughtfully. Detective, look at Matthew here. He's holding Emma's hand tightly, possessively almost. I wouldn't have noticed before, but after talking to Clara. Liam examined the photo closely, seeing clearly what Oliver pointed out. Matthew's grip on Emma's hand indeed appeared unusually tight, protective yet possessive. Subtle, yes, but notable. Oliver, we've searched this property thoroughly before, but perhaps we missed something important. Do you think there could be areas we never fully checked? Oliver considered carefully. Possibly. The old attic, for instance. Clara never liked going up there after Emma disappeared. It was mostly used for storage. I don't recall it being searched extensively. Liam's pulse quickened slightly. Let's check it again, thoroughly. Something could still be there. Together, they returned to the Torres beach house, its faded exterior now reflecting 2 decades of quiet neglect. Clara watched silently from the porch as Liam gently requested permission to search again. She nodded. Softly, resigned yet cautiously hopeful. Inside, Liam ascended the narrow stairs toward the attic, Oliver closely following. The attic air was musty, filled with dust and shadows. Boxes and forgotten belongings cluttered every corner. Memories sealed tightly beneath layers of time. Methodically, they examined each box, uncovering nothing significant at first. Frustration crept in slowly, but Liam persisted patiently, driven by determination. Then, partially concealed behind old blankets in a dusty corner, he noticed a small cardboard box labeled simply, "Videos." Liam carefully removed the lid, his pulse racing suddenly. Inside rested an old, forgotten VHS camcorder, a relic of the past, abandoned and untouched for 20 years. Oliver, look at this. Oliver stepped closer, eyes widening. Detective, this camcorder. It could still have something recorded. Maybe footage from Anna's birthday. Something we never saw. Liam nodded gravely, excitement tempered by caution. Let's take this immediately to the station. If anything remains on this tape, it could finally show us exactly what happened that night. They descended the attic stairs swiftly, carrying the old camcorder carefully, hearts pounding in anticipation. Clara met them anxiously at the base of the stairs. Did you find something? Her voice trembled with cautious hope. Liam answered gently. We found an old camcorder. It might hold footage from Emma's birthday party, something we never saw. Clara's eyes widened, tears forming instantly, her voice barely a whisper. Please, detective. Find the truth. Liam met her gaze solemnly. I promise you. Clara, We won't stop until we do. As Liam and Oliver left the Torres house, camcorders secured carefully, Tybee Island's serene beauty seemed suddenly charged with possibility. After 20 years, the key to Emma's disappearance might finally lie quietly inside this forgotten device. Back at the precinct, technicians prepared carefully to examine the old VHS tape, anticipation filling the quiet room. Liam stood silently beside Oliver, his heart pounding with hope and anxiety. The tape began playing softly, its grainy images flickering slowly onto the monitor, pulling everyone watching back to a night long buried beneath memories and sorrow. Liam held his breath, eyes fixed intently on the screen, hoping desperately for clarity. As the first shaky images emerged from the tape, Liam leaned forward slightly, pulse quickening. Whatever truths lay hidden here, waiting silently for 20 years, were finally about to surface, revealing secrets long concealed in shadows. On the screen, figures moved in fragmented glimpses, a familiar red dress, smiles, laughter. Then, abruptly, the camera angle shifted, capturing something unexpected, something startling. Liam's breath caught sharply, eyes widening with shock and disbelief. "Pause that right there," he instructed urgently, voice trembling. As the image froze, Liam felt certainty surge through him. After 20 agonizing years, this single, previously unseen moment might finally unravel the hidden truth behind Emma Torres' disappearance. The small police precinct was filled with a tense, palpable silence. Detective Liam Parker stood in the dimly lit viewing room, eyes locked anxiously onto the old VHS camcorder sitting carefully atop the evidence table. Beside him stood Oliver Graham, whose breath was slow but shallow, his expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. A few forensic technicians gathered around, waiting quietly as one carefully inserted the fragile tape into the outdated player. The quiet whirring sound as the device powered up seemed unnaturally loud. Liam felt his heart hammering as static filled the small television screen. He had spent 2 decades haunted by this case, driven by regret and unanswered questions. Now, after so many years, answers could finally be within reach, yet the fear of disappointment felt almost unbearable. The static dissolved into grainy, shaky footage from Emma's 18th birthday party, a distant past flickering vividly back to life. Liam saw the beach house backyard, decorated festively, bathed in warm light. Voices echoed from the speakers, laughter filling the quiet viewing room, starkly contrasting the grim context of their current reality. Emma appeared on screen, radiant in her red dress, smiling brightly as she interacted with guests. Liam's breath tightened in his chest, a painful nostalgia washing over him. Clara appeared briefly, eyes filled with pride and love as she gently hugged her daughter. The innocent scene was profoundly moving, a heartbreaking reminder of what had been lost. Oliver stood silently beside Liam, his gaze locked onto the screen, sharing quietly in the emotional weight. Seeing Emma so alive, so vibrant, felt simultaneously comforting and deeply painful. The camera shifted erratically, capturing casual, unguarded moments between friends and family, little glimpses of laughter, whispered conversations, shared glances filled with affection. Each frame felt precious, fragile, preserved only by chance. Then, after a series of joyful exchanges, the screen momentarily darkened, distorted by static interference. Liam leaned forward anxiously, his pulse quickening. As the footage stabilized, again, the camera angle had unintentionally shifted, its lens now facing outward through a narrow window, capturing a dimly lit stretch of beach just beyond the backyard. "Hold on," Liam murmured. "Sharply turn up the volume." The technician increased the sound gently. In the muted background noise, distant voices gradually emerged, faint yet increasingly audible. Liam recognized one immediately: Matthew Torres, his familiar voice carrying faintly through the speakers. Oliver's eyes widened in stunned disbelief. "That's Matthew, isn't it?" Liam nodded tensely, urging everyone to remain silent as the footage continued. Through the grainy image, two silhouettes appeared in the darkness, becoming slowly clearer as they stepped closer toward the faint glow of the patio lights. Emma's unmistakable form emerged, walking beside Matthew, their body language tense. Awkward, the audio, distorted but clear enough, captured Matthew's words filled with subtle anger. "You don't understand, Emma. Everything I've done, it's been for you, for us. How can you just throw it all away?" Emma's voice responded, audibly shaken but resolute. "Uncle Matthew, this isn't healthy. I care about you, but you have to stop treating me like this. I need to live my life." Matthew's tone darkened abruptly, each word dripping with quiet menace. "You think you can just leave me behind? After everything I've sacrificed?" Oliver glanced nervously toward Liam, whose fists clenched tightly, his jaw tense as he absorbed the escalating confrontation on screen. "I have my dreams." Uncle Matthew, Emma's voice trembled. "I can't stay trapped here forever." Matthew suddenly grabbed Emma's wrist, his grip forceful, possessive. Her startled cry was brief but piercing. "You're not going anywhere, Emma. You belong here with me." Emma struggled visibly, trying desperately to pull free. The camera captured her panic, even from a distance. Matthew's voice lowered dangerously, barely audible but unmistakably threatening. "If you won't stay willingly, I'll make sure you don't leave at all." Liam felt sickened, angered deeply by the raw revelation unfolding before him. He watched helplessly as Matthew forcefully led Emma out of the camera's frame, toward the secluded darkness of the dunes. The camera continued recording in silent witness, its lens fixed unwaveringly on empty sand, the distant sound of ocean. Waves the only audible companion to the lingering, disturbing quietness. The room felt suffocating, every viewer frozen, waiting anxiously for something, anything, to break the terrible uncertainty. Then, after what felt like an eternity, Matthew reappeared on screen alone, walking hurriedly back into view. His movements were agitated, his breathing audible and heavy, clearly distressed. The grainy footage captured him carrying a small metal box, eerily identical to the one Oliver had uncovered buried in the sand 2 decades later. With frantic urgency, Matthew knelt quickly in the sand, digging hastily and methodically burying the box, completely unaware he was still being recorded through the window. Liam's pulse quickened with a mixture of horror and triumph. The truth, at last, lay undeniably exposed. The footage faded slowly into static, the forgotten camera finally exhausting its battery and slipping into darkness. Silence hung thickly throughout the viewing room, broken finally by Liam's quiet but firm voice. "We have him. Contact Judge Reynolds immediately. Get an arrest warrant now." Oliver looked at Liam, his face pale but resolute. "You were right, Detective. It was Matthew all along. But how did we miss this?" Liam's eyes narrowed grimly. Matthew played the role of devoted uncle perfectly. He fooled us all. But this footage changes everything. Within moments, the precinct buzzed with urgent activity. Officers gathered swiftly, preparing carefully coordinated movements. Liam briefed them briefly, his voice steady but tense with emotion. "Matthew Torres is to be taken into custody immediately. He has no idea we have this evidence. Move quietly and quickly. Let's give Clara the justice she's waited 20 years for." The precinct mobilized swiftly, patrol cars silently converging toward Matthew's comfortable beachfront home. Liam drove ahead, heart pounding with the anticipation of finally confronting Matthew directly. Matthew sat quietly inside his living room, sipping tea, outwardly calm. His carefully composed life seemed untouched by turmoil, the day fading quietly. Outside his elegant home, yet beneath the surface, Matthew's carefully constructed composure cracked slowly. Anxiety stirred by renewed attention around Emma's case. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed urgently at his door. Matthew set his cup down slowly, adjusting his glasses carefully before opening the door. His expression carefully neutral. Detective Liam Parker stood solemnly on the doorstep, flanked by several uniformed officers, their expressions grim. Liam's gaze fixed coldly onto Matthew's carefully controlled expression. "Matthew Torres, you're under arrest for the abduction and presumed murder of Emma Torres. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Matthew's eyes widened slightly, panic briefly flashing across his face before he quickly regained control. "Detective, this must be some mistake." Liam's voice cut sharply through Matthew's desperate protests. "We have evidence, Matthew. Footage from Emma's birthday night, clearly showing your actions." "It's over." Matthew's shoulders slumped slightly, his carefully crafted facade finally breaking. Officers stepped forward swiftly, securing handcuffs around his wrists as Liam observed quietly, his expression grimly triumphant. As Matthew was led silently toward the waiting police vehicle, neighbors gathered cautiously, shock and disbelief etched across their faces. Liam turned away slowly, feeling immense relief yet a lingering sadness for the devastating truths now revealed. He climbed into his vehicle, driving quietly toward the Torres family home to personally deliver the news to Clara. Arriving shortly afterward, Liam gently approached Clara's door, his heart heavy with empathy. She opened cautiously, eyes wide with anxious hope. "Clara, we have him. Matthew is in custody." Clara's tears flowed freely, grief and relief intertwining deeply. "All these years I trusted him. How could he?" Liam placed a comforting hand gently on her shoulder. "Justice is finally coming, Clara. Emma's story can now be told." She nodded slowly, allowing herself, for the first time in decades, the faintest glimmer of peace. Outside, as darkness enveloped Tybee Island, Matthew Torres sat quietly in the back seat of a police cruiser, staring blankly out toward the ocean he had once viewed as calming. Secrets buried deep beneath sand and silence were finally unearthed. In the darkness, whispers faded slowly into nothingness, replaced at last by clarity and long-awaited truth. The fading evening sun cast long, dramatic shadows across Tybee Island as police vehicles slowly converged in front of Matthew Torres' elegant beachfront home. Detective Liam Parker, with his jaw set tightly, stepped out of his vehicle, feeling the weight of 2 decades of unanswered questions pressing heavily against his chest. Officers moved quickly and quietly, positioning themselves carefully around the property. Liam approached the front door with deliberate, measured steps, every heartbeat echoing loudly in his ears. He knocked firmly, his fist heavy against the polished wood. From inside, he heard Matthew's footsteps approaching swiftly. The door swung open smoothly, and Matthew appeared, his expression shifting from initial confusion to carefully controlled surprise. "Detective Parker? What's this about?" Matthew asked, his voice smoothly calm, though Liam noticed his fingers quickly adjusting his glasses, a gesture he'd observed many times before. "Matthew Torres, you're under arrest for the abduction and presumed murder of Emma Torres," Liam said firmly, holding Matthew's stunned gaze steadily. "We have new evidence." Matthew's composure cracked visibly, panic flitting briefly across his carefully managed features. "This is absurd, Detective. You must be mistaken. I had nothing to do with Emma's disappearance." Liam shook his head, unmoved, his eyes sharp and unwavering. "Matthew, we found the footage. Your own words, your own actions. It's over." Matthew's face drained of color, a fine sheen of sweat appearing on his brow. Officers stepped forward swiftly, securing Matthew's wrists firmly in handcuffs despite his weak protests. Neighbors watched quietly from a distance, expressions of shock etched deeply on their faces, whispers rippling quickly through the gathered crowd. Matthew was guided silently into the back seat of a patrol car, his carefully maintained facade visibly fracturing. Liam's eyes narrowed thoughtfully as he observed Matthew's quiet desperation. The calm, reassuring uncle had vanished, replaced suddenly by a visibly shaken and vulnerable man, one whose secrets were finally exposed. Back at the precinct, Matthew was seated alone in the interrogation room, stark fluorescent lights illuminating the small, sterile space. Detective Liam Parker watched through the mirrored observation window, mentally preparing himself for the crucial conversation ahead. He had waited 20 years for this moment, and now, confronting Matthew directly, Liam felt a complex mix of anticipation and quiet anger. He entered the room slowly, his posture composed yet assertive, file folder in hand. Matthew's gaze lifted cautiously, his hands trembling slightly despite his forced attempt to appear calm. "Matthew," Liam began evenly, his voice controlled yet firm. "It's time to tell the truth." Matthew forced a weak smile, adjusting his glasses again nervously, his attempt at confidence faltering. "I already told you, Detective Parker. You're mistaken. Emma meant the world to me. I loved her like a daughter. You have the wrong person." Liam shook his head slowly, opening the folder deliberately. "We have undeniable evidence, Matthew. Your actions were recorded on camera the night Emma disappeared. You were seen arguing with her, threatening her, dragging her out of view." Matthew's eyes widened slightly, betraying fear before quickly regaining composure. "You're misinterpreting things. Emma and I had disagreements, like any family. It never went beyond that." Liam single quotes as voice hardened slightly, determination seeping into every carefully measured word. "You know, Matthew, I've spent 2 decades wondering about you." The calm, supportive uncle, always present, always composed. "Yet, something never sat right with me. You were almost too perfect, too controlled. And now, seeing that footage, your true face emerges clearly." Matthew's hands clenched tightly, visibly trembling as Liam's quiet accusation struck deeply. I cared deeply for Emma." Matthew's voice wavered slightly. "More than anyone knew. She was slipping away from me, Detective. She didn't understand how much she needed me." Liam leaned forward slightly, pressing gently yet firmly. "What happened after the camera stopped recording, Matthew?" Matthew swallowed hard, his composure slowly unraveling under Liam's relentless questioning. He hesitated, eyes darting nervously, a quiet, tortured desperation flickering clearly in his gaze. "I didn't mean to hurt her," Matthew finally whispered, voice barely audible. "I just wanted her to stay. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her, but she fought, resisted. I panicked. I never wanted it to happen this way." Liam's eyes narrowed sharply. "You killed her, didn't you?" Matthew's head dropped, his shoulders shaking, tears slowly tracing quiet paths down his face. "It was an accident. I swear to you. We argued, and she refused to listen. I held her wrist, tried to make her understand. But she struggled, and struck her head against a rock. I didn't mean it, I promise." Liam felt his chest tighten, a quiet fury simmering beneath his careful exterior. "Then why cover it up, Matthew? Why not call for help?" Matthew's voice cracked, his carefully constructed facade finally shattering. Completely, I was terrified. Emma was everything to Clara, to me. I couldn't face losing her or Clara's judgment. I panicked. I buried the evidence, hid her away, hoping it would all disappear. I convinced myself it was just a nightmare, something I could erase, but it never left me. It haunted me every day for 20 years. Matthew's shoulders shook violently, quiet sobs breaking through his restrained exterior. Liam observed silently, a mixture of disgust and quiet empathy warring within him. Justice would be served, yet the tragedy remained profound. The door opened quietly behind Liam, and Clara stepped slowly inside the interrogation room, her gaze fixed intently upon Matthew, her eyes shadowed deeply with quiet devastation. Matthew lifted his head weakly, meeting Clara's gaze, his expression one of remorse and quiet anguish. "How could you, Matthew?" Clara's voice trembled painfully, the depth of her betrayal profound. "You saw me suffer every single day. Watched me searching, hoping. You comforted me, lied to my face for 20 years. Matthew reached weakly toward her, his voice pleading softly. "Clara, please, forgive me. I never wanted you hurt." "I loved you both," Clara recoiled sharply, her voice breaking, filled with quiet rage and unimaginable pain. "You took my daughter from me, Matthew. You destroyed our lives. I trusted you completely, and you betrayed us. I will never forgive you." She turned slowly away, tears silently tracing paths of profound grief down her pale face. Liam gently guided her from the room, quietly acknowledging the unimaginable depth of her pain. Outside, Oliver Graham waited quietly, his expression one of compassion and quiet relief. Clara approached Oliver slowly, her voice gentle yet deeply emotional. "Thank you, Oliver. Without your discovery, we might never have known the truth. Emma finally has justice, thanks to you." Oliver nodded slowly, eyes warm with empathy. "I just wish we could have helped sooner. But perhaps now we can both find peace. Emma deserves that." Liam observed quietly from a distance, feeling profound gratitude toward Oliver for his unwavering support. Oliver had quietly become indispensable, a beacon of hope amidst deep darkness. Inside the interrogation room, Matthew sat silently, broken and utterly exposed, the carefully constructed layers of control completely stripped away. Liam returned slowly, watching Matthew closely, considering carefully his next words. "Matthew, you must understand the full truth matters. Is there anything else you've concealed about Emma?" Matthew's gaze lifted weakly, something strange flickering briefly in his eyes, a hint of quiet desperation. "Detective, there's still something no one knows about Emma, something even I didn't fully understand until it was too late." Liam's eyes narrowed sharply, his heart quickening slightly with renewed urgency. "What are you talking about, Matthew?" Matthew hesitated, struggling visibly, his voice low yet clearly troubled. "Emma wasn't the person everyone thought she was. There were secrets she kept, things she was planning to reveal. Things that might have changed everything." Liam leaned forward, intently, carefully controlling his quiet urgency. "What secrets, Matthew? What was Emma hiding?" Matthew shook his head slowly, his expression deeply haunted yet maddeningly enigmatic. "I'm not the only one with something to hide, Detective. The truth about Emma goes deeper than just me. But now it's your job to uncover that truth." Liam felt frustration and confusion surge sharply within him, questions multiplying rapidly in his mind. He stood silently, observing Matthew closely, sensing deeply the unsettling weight behind his words. Outside the precinct, darkness enveloped Tybee Island, the night heavy with lingering mysteries still unresolved. Liam Parker felt the quiet burden of Matthew's cryptic confession pressing sharply against him. Emma's case, even after 2 decades, continued unraveling deeper layers of secrets and quiet revelations. What else had Emma hidden from the world? And what truth still lay silently beneath the calm surface of this island? As Liam stepped quietly outside, breathing deeply beneath the starless night sky, he knew one final haunting chapter still remained, waiting silently to reveal the ultimate truth behind Emma Torres' hidden life. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as Matthew Torres faced sentencing for Emma's disappearance and murder. Matthew appeared broken, remorseful, and unable to meet anyone's eyes, especially Clara's, who watched him with quiet sorrow. Detective Liam Parker, feeling deep personal relief, observed quietly from the back. Judge Reynolds sentenced Matthew to life imprisonment without parole, firmly emphasizing the devastating consequences of his jealousy-driven actions. Matthew, visibly shaken, offered a weak apology to Clara, acknowledging the damage he caused. Clara quietly absorbed his words, fighting back tears but remaining strong. After sentencing, Clara thanked Liam for his persistence and Oliver Graham for his crucial discovery, which finally brought justice for Emma. Oliver and Clara formed a close bond, offering mutual comfort. Later, Oliver revealed to Liam that Emma had planned to announce at her birthday that she was accepted to a university in New York and pregnant from a secret relationship, triggering Matthew's jealous rage. Days later, family, friends, Liam, and Oliver gathered at the Torres Beach house to plant a tree in Emma's memory, symbolizing healing and honoring her legacy. Clara found strength and comfort, acknowledging Emma's lasting influence and the importance of moving forward. Liam and Oliver reflected deeply on the powerful lessons about resilience, truth, and the lasting impact of their choices. As night fell on Tybee Island, the newly planted tree stood as a hopeful reminder of Emma's life, bringing a quiet sense of peace and closure to the entire community.